Gia stood at the window of her small home. Outside, the 3 moons of planet Neova shone bright in the night sky. She touched the purple marks on her arm and sighed. These marks were the reason she lived alone, far from the city. The Lorani people did not like anything different. They all had blue skin, silver hair, and 2 small horns. Gia had these too, but she also had purple marks all over her skin. She was born with them. The marks made other Lorani stay away from her. They thought the marks were bad luck. Another quiet night, Gia said to herself. She turned away from the window and walked to her work desk. At least she had a job. Her computer screen glowed in the dim room. As a data analyst, she could work from home and not see the fear in other people's eyes. Her small home sat on the edge of a forest, far from the shining towers of the city. Gia liked it this way. The forest did not judge her. The trees did not whisper when she passed. Still, being alone all the time made her heart heavy. Gia sat down and began to work. Numbers and charts filled her screen. She organized data about trade between planets. The work was boring, but it paid for food and her home. More importantly, she could do it without leaving her house. After 3 hours, Gia's eyes hurt from looking at the screen. She got up and made a hot drink. The bitter liquid helped her stay awake. She had to finish this report before morning. As she drank, Gia looked at the small shelf above her desk. On it sat 5 small plants in pots. They were the only living things besides her in the house. She watered them carefully. "At least you don't mind my marks," she told the plants. They were from Earth, a planet she had only read about. Earth plants were rare now. The planet was gone, destroyed in what the official news called a natural disaster. Gia wasn't sure she believed that. She touched a small red flower gently. Earth things fascinated her. There were rumors about the humans who once lived there. Some said they had special powers. Others said they were dangerous. Now most humans were kept as pets by rich aliens. Gia went back to work. The night grew later. Her back hurt from sitting so long. Finally, she finished the report and sent it to her boss. Dawn was coming. The first of the 3 suns would rise soon. Her food supply was getting low. Tomorrow she would have to go to the city. The thought made her stomach tight with worry. City trips always meant stares, whispers, and sometimes cruel words. Gia walked to her bedroom and lay down. Her bed was soft and warm, but sleep did not come easily. In her mind, she saw the faces of other Lorani turning away from her. She remembered being a child, the other children running away when she tried to play with them. One day, she whispered to the empty room, "I'll find someone who isn't afraid of me." Outside, the stars continued to shine. Somewhere in that vast sky, was there anyone else who felt as alone as she did? Gia closed her eyes and dreamed of finding a friend who would look at her purple marks and see beauty instead of something to fear. Tomorrow would be another day of hiding and working, but maybe, just maybe, something different would happen. Gia didn't know it yet, but her life was about to change forever. The city lights hurt Gia's eyes as she walked through the market. She pulled her hood lower to hide her purple marks. Still, some Lorani noticed and moved away from her. She tried to ignore their stares. Just get food and go home, Gia told herself. She bought fruits, dried meat, and grain. The seller took her money without touching her hand. Gia was used to this, but it still hurt. As she turned to leave, she heard shouting. A crowd had gathered near the edge of the market. Curious, Gia moved closer. She stayed at the back of the crowd where no one would notice her. "Another illegal pet shipment," said a Lorani next to her. The patrol caught them trying to sell exotic creatures. Gia stood on her toes to see better. 6 patrol officers in silver uniforms were unloading cages from a small ship. Inside the cages were strange creatures. Some had fur, others had scales. All looked scared. "What will happen to them?" Gia asked before she could stop herself. The Lorani looked at her, saw her purple marks, and stepped away. "The healthy ones will be sold at official pet shops. The sick or damaged ones will be put down." Gia felt sick. Put down meant killed. She watched as the officers sorted the animals into two groups. One group had healthy, strong-looking creatures. The other had smaller, weaker ones. Then she saw it. In a small cage at the end was a creature with no fur or scales. It had pale skin and dark hair on its head. Its thin arms wrapped around its body as if cold. It was a human child. "What about that one?" Jia heard an officer ask, pointing at the human. "Damaged goods," said another officer. "Legs don't work. No one wants a pet that can't walk. We'll dispose of it with the others." The human child looked up then. Its eyes met Jia's across the crowd. Those eyes were dark and full of fear, but also something else. Intelligence. Understanding. This was no mindless pet. Before she knew what she was doing, Jia pushed through the crowd. "Wait," she called to the officers. Everyone turned to look at her. Whispers spread as they saw her purple marks. Jia wanted to run away and hide, but those eyes kept her moving forward. "I'll take it," she said. "The human with the broken legs. I'll take it." The officers laughed. "You want this?" One kicked the cage, making the human inside flinch. "It's useless. Can't even walk." "I still want it," Jia said firmly. "Is that allowed?" The lead officer looked her up and down. "The marked one wants the broken human." "Fitting." More laughter. "Fine. Save us the trouble of disposal, but you must register it properly." Jia nodded. She filled out forms and paid a small fee. All the while, the human watched her silently. Finally, an officer opened the cage. "It's all yours, marked one. Don't come complaining when it dies." The human tried to move but couldn't use its legs. Jia gently picked it up. It was light, too light. Its body was warm against hers. The human tensed at first, then slowly relaxed. "I'm taking you home," Jia said softly. "You're safe now." The human didn't speak but held onto Jia's shirt with small fingers. The walk home was long. People stared at the strange pair, the marked Loreni carrying the paralyzed human. Jia didn't care. For the first time in years, she wasn't alone. As they left the city behind, the human looked up at the stars. A single tear ran down its face. "I'll call you Summon," Jia said. She didn't know why she chose that name. It just felt right. Summon looked at her and blinked slowly. Was that understanding in those eyes? Jia smiled. "We're almost home, Summon. We're both outcasts now. Maybe we can be outcasts together." Jia's home felt different with Summon in it. No longer quiet and empty, it now had a new energy. For 3 days, Jia tried to make the human comfortable. She made a soft bed in the spare room. She offered different foods to see what Summon would eat. The human child was thin and weak. Her legs lay still on the bed, useless, but her eyes watched everything. They followed Jia around the room, alert and thinking. "Can you understand me?" Jia asked on the 4th day. She sat beside Summon's bed with a bowl of soup. Summon looked at her but didn't speak. Instead, she made shapes with her hands. "You're trying to talk to me," Jia realized. "But I don't understand." That night, after Summon fell asleep, Jia searched her computer for information about humans. Most sites just talked about humans as pets, but one site, hidden deep in old files, had more. It showed how humans once had their own language and wrote with symbols. They weren't always pets, Jia whispered. They had a world of their own. The next morning, Jia brought a small device to Summon's room. It was a simple translator she used for work. She had spent all night changing it to help with human speech. "Try to talk," Jia said, placing the device between them. "This might help." Summon looked at the device. Slowly, she made shapes with her hands again. The device blinked. "Help," said the device in a flat voice. "Me." Jia gasped. "It works. You can talk with your hands." Over the next few days, Jia improved the translator. Summon began to share her story. Her real name wasn't Summon, but she accepted the name Jia gave her. Her home planet, Earth, had been attacked. Her family had fled on a ship. Ship caught, Soman signed, and the translator spoke. Family gone. Legs hurt in fight. You were injured when they caught your family's ship? Jia asked. Soman nodded. Broke my back. Can't feel legs. Jia felt her heart break for the small human. I'm sorry, Soman. I'm so sorry. As weeks passed, Soman grew stronger. Her arms and upper body became firm with exercise. She could pull herself around Jia's home using her arms. Her eyes grew brighter, and sometimes she even smiled. Jia taught Soman about her work. The human learned quickly, often solving data problems that Jia found hard. At night, they looked at the stars together through Jia's window. My star's different, Soman sighed one night. Yes, Jia said. We're far from Earth. Earth gone now. Soman's hands moved slowly. The translator spoke in its flat voice, but Jia could feel the sadness behind the words. I know. I'm sorry. Jia touched Soman's hand gently. But you're not alone anymore. That night, while Soman slept, something strange happened. Jia was working late when her cup of drink moved. It slid across the table on its own, just a little. Jia blinked, thinking she was tired and seeing things. Then she heard Soman cry out in her sleep. The human was having a bad dream, her face tight with fear. At that same moment, the lights in the house flickered. Odd, Jia said. She went to comfort Soman, stroking her hair until the bad dream passed. The lights stopped flickering. Jia told herself it was just the old power system in her house acting up. She didn't connect it to Soman's nightmare. Not yet. But as she returned to her work, a strange feeling came over her. Something about Soman was special. Different. Perhaps the human was more than just a broken pet no one wanted. Maybe, just maybe, Soman was something the Lorani had never seen before. 1 month had passed since Soman came to live with Jia. The human child grew stronger each day. Her thin arms now moved with ease as she pulled herself around the house. Her dark hair grew longer, and Jia learned to braid it the way Soman showed her. But strange things kept happening in the small house. First, it was just small objects moving. A cup sliding across a table. A book falling from a shelf when no one was near. Jia blamed the wind or her own forgetfulness. Then the lights began to act odd more often. They grew bright when Soman was happy. They dimmed when she was sad. They flickered wildly during her nightmares. Must be the power grid, Jia told herself. This house is old. One night, Jia woke to a crash. She ran to Soman's room and found a shelf had fallen. Books and toys lay scattered on the floor. Soman sat up in bed, eyes wide with fear. Bad dream, she signed, and the translator spoke. Jia cleaned up the mess. It's okay. Just an accident. But the next day, something happened that Jia could not explain away. She had gone to the kitchen to make food. When she returned to Soman's room, she stopped in the doorway, frozen in shock. The medical scanner, a heavy device Jia used to check Soman's health, was floating 3 feet above the bed. It hung in the air as if held by invisible hands. Soman slept below it, her face peaceful. As Jia watched, the scanner slowly lowered back to the table beside the bed. It made no sound as it landed. That's not possible, Jia whispered. That evening, after Soman was asleep, Jia searched her computer for information. She looked up human abilities and Earth legends. Most sites said humans were simple beings with no special powers. But one old file, written before Earth was destroyed, told a different story. Humans were feared, Jia read aloud. Some showed signs of mental powers, moving objects with thought, seeing the future, speaking mind to mind. The Galactic Council called these powers dangerous. Jia looked toward Soman's room. Could it be true? Did humans have powers? Was that why Earth was really destroyed? The next day, Jia decided to test her theory. She placed a small ball on the table in front of Soman. Soman, she said gently, can you move this without touching it? Soman looked confused. How? Just try. Think about moving it. Soman stared at the ball. Nothing happened. She frowned and tried harder. The ball stayed still. Sorry, she signed. Can't do it. It's okay, Jia said. I was just curious. Later that day, Jia was working when she heard Soman cry out. She ran to the child's room and found her trying to reach a toy that had fallen too far from her bed. I'll get it, Jia said. But before she could move, the toy slid across the floor toward Soman. It stopped right at the edge of the bed. Soman looked as surprised as Jia felt. Did you do that? Jia asked. Soman nodded slowly. Wanted it badly. Then it came. That night, they sat together looking at the stars. Jia told Soman what she had read. Your people might have had special abilities, she explained. Powers of the mind. Is that bad? Soman asked with her hands. Jia thought about how the Lorani feared anything different, how they pushed her away for simple purple marks on her skin. What would they do to a being with real powers? No, Jia said firmly. It's not bad. But we should keep it a secret, just between us. Soman nodded and leaned against Jia's side. For now, they were safe in their small house far from the city. But Jia wondered how long their peace would last if others discovered what Soman could do. 2 months had passed since Jia found Soman. The human's powers grew stronger each day. Soman could now move small objects easily just by thinking about them. She used this power to help herself when Jia wasn't around. She could bring food from across the room or pick up things she dropped. Jia taught Soman to be careful. Never show your powers to anyone else, she warned. One morning, Jia's computer made a loud sound. A message appeared on the screen. It was from the City Office of Pet Control. Home inspection today. Jia read with fear in her voice. All human pets must be checked for health and proper care. Soman looked scared. Why they come? Someone must have reported us, Jia said. Maybe a delivery person saw you through the window. They didn't have much time. Jia cleaned the house and hid anything that showed Soman was smart. She put away the books they read together and the games they played. Remember, Jia told Soman, act like a simple pet. Don't use your powers. Don't use the translator. Soman nodded. She looked scared but brave. The inspectors arrived at midday. They were 2 Lorani in gray uniforms. One was tall with a mean face. The other was short with small eyes that missed nothing. We are here to check the human pet, said the tall one. He looked at Jia's purple marks with disgust. Of course, Jia said, trying to stay calm. This way, please. They followed her to Soman's room. Soman lay on her bed, eyes down, acting simple. The short inspector scanned her with a device. The human is underweight, he said, and its legs do not function. I'm helping her get stronger, Jia explained. She was like this when I got her. The tall inspector looked around the room. He picked up a book that Jia had missed hiding. Why does a pet need reading material? He asked with suspicion. It's mine, Jia said quickly. I read here sometimes. The inspector didn't believe her. He turned to his partner. This marked one is teaching the human. That's against the law. The short inspector nodded. We must take it to a proper facility. No. Jia stood between them and Soman. She's mine legally. You can't take her. Stand aside, ordered the tall inspector. He pushed Jia hard. She fell to the floor, hitting her head. Soman saw this and her eyes grew wide with anger. Suddenly, everything in the room began to shake. Books, toys, and tools flew into the air. The lights flashed on and off. What's happening? Yelled the short inspector. A force like a strong wind pushed both inspectors back. They hit the wall hard. Tools and books flew at them, hitting their faces and bodies. The human, shouted the tall one. It's doing this. They tried to reach Soman, but the invisible force was too strong. It threw them across the room again. This time, they hit the door. The tall inspector pulled out a weapon. Before he could use it, it flew from his hand and broke apart in midair. "Let's get out of here." The short inspector grabbed his partner, and they ran from the house. When they were gone, everything fell to the floor. The shaking stopped. The lights returned to normal. Jia got up slowly, her head hurting. She looked at Summon with amazement and fear. Summon sat frozen on her bed. Her eyes were wide and scared. She seemed shocked by what she had done. "Summon," Jia approached carefully. "Are you okay?" Summon didn't respond. She stared straight ahead, not blinking. Her hands didn't move to sign words. It was as if her mind had gone away to hide. "Oh no," Jia whispered. She hugged Summon gently, but the human didn't hug back. "It's okay. You saved us. But we can't stay here now. They'll come back with more people." Jia knew they had to leave quickly. The inspectors would report what happened. Soon, soldiers would come for Summon. They needed to run. They needed to find a safe place. But where could they go? Jia moved quickly. She packed food, clothes, and Summon's translator. She found an old hover cart in her storage room and fixed it to work. She placed Summon, still silent and unmoving, onto the cart. "We have to go into the forest," Jia told Summon, even though the human didn't respond. "It's our only chance." Night fell as they left the small house behind. The forest was dark and thick with tall trees. Strange sounds came from all around them. Jia pushed the hover cart forward, deeper into the unknown. For 3 days, they traveled through the forest. Jia spoke to Summon constantly, hoping to bring her back from whatever dark place her mind had gone. But Summon remained silent, her eyes open but seeing nothing. On the 4th day, Jia was tired. Her food was almost gone. She didn't know where to go next. As night came again, she stopped beside a small stream to rest. "I don't know what to do next," she admitted to Summon. "But I promise I'll keep you safe." As she sat there, feeling lost, a light appeared between the trees ahead. Jia tensed, ready to run. Was it the city patrol? Had they found them? A figure stepped into view. It was a Lirani male, old with white hair. Unlike most Lirani, his skin had red spots on it. Another outcast, marked like Jia. "I've been watching you for days," the old Lirani said. "My name is Do. You're safe here. How can I trust you?" Jia asked, staying near Summon. Do smiled gently. "Because unlike you, marked, different, and I know what your small friend can do." He led them to a hidden home built into the side of a hill. Inside was warm and filled with strange equipment. Books lined the walls. Some were very old. "I studied humans for years," Do explained. He looked at Summon with kind eyes. "This one has awakened what was sleeping inside her." "What do you mean?" Jia asked. Do picked up an old book. "The truth about humans is not what we've been told. They weren't simple beings or pets. They were powerful." He showed Jia pictures of Earth before it was destroyed. Humans had built great cities. They had traveled in space, and some had developed special mental powers. The Galactic Council feared them, Do said. Humans were evolving too fast. Their powers were growing. So the Council attacked Earth. Jia gasped. "They destroyed a whole planet because they were afraid." Do nodded sadly. "The humans who survived were changed. The Council put something in their DNA to stop their powers from working. Then they sold them as pets." "But Summon's powers work," Jia said, looking at the still silent child. "Yes, and that makes her very dangerous to the Council." Do examined Summon carefully. Her DNA was changed when her back was broken. The medicine used to treat her damaged the blocks the Council put in her genes. Do touched Summon's forehead gently. "She's hiding inside herself now." The sudden use of her powers scared her. She needs to feel safe again. "How can I help her?" Jia asked. "Speak to her mind," Do suggested. "Humans can feel the thoughts of others sometimes." Jia sat beside Summon. She took the child's small hand in hers. She closed her eyes and thought hard. "*You are safe, Summon. I am here. Please come back asterisk. At first, nothing happened. Then Summon's fingers moved slightly. Her eyes blinked once, twice. She turned her head to look at Jia. You found me, she signed weakly. Tears of joy ran down Jia's face. Yes, I found you. And we found someone who can help us. The inspectors, Summon asked, fear in her eyes. Gone for now, Jia assured her, but we have much to learn. About you. About what you can really do. Summon looked at Do with curious eyes. The old Lorani smiled at her. There are others like you, he told Summon, and it's time you learned the truth about who you really are. For 2 weeks, Jia and Summon lived with Do in his hidden home. Summon grew stronger each day. With Do's help, she learned to control her powers. She could now move larger objects with her mind. She could turn lights on and off without touching them. She could even feel the thoughts of others nearby. You're learning fast, Do told her one morning. Faster than I expected. Summon smiled. She used her translator to speak. I practice all the time. Jia watched them with pride. Summon was no longer afraid of her powers, but something still bothered Jia. Why can't she heal her own legs? Jia asked Do when Summon was resting. If she can move things with her mind, why not fix her own body? Do looked sad. The mind can affect things outside the body more easily than inside, and her injury is very old now. The nerves have been damaged too long. One night, as they ate dinner, Do said, It's time I showed you something important. He led them to a hidden door in the back of his home. Behind it was a long tunnel with lights along the walls. They followed the tunnel deep into the hill. At the end was a large room filled with computers and screens. Welcome to the Resistance, Do said. 5 other beings worked at the computers. 2 were Lorani with marked skin like Do and Jia. 1 was a tall blue alien with 4 arms. And 2 were humans, walking on their own legs. Summon stared at the humans with wide eyes. Like me, she signed. One of the humans, a female with short gray hair, came over to them. Hello, young one, she said in a soft voice. She didn't need a translator. I'm Yumi. You can talk, Summon signed. Amazed. Yes, I was freed from a lab 10 years ago, Yumi explained. I've been working with Do ever since. Do showed them around the room. On the screens were pictures of different places on the planet. One showed a large building with high walls. That's a human breeding facility, Do said. The owners raise humans to sell as pets. Another screen showed a lab where humans were kept in glass rooms. That's where they change human babies. They put drugs in their bodies to stop their powers from growing. Jia felt sick. This is horrible. Yes, Do agreed. That's why we fight. We are the Resistance. We free humans and help them awaken their powers. Like you helped me, Summon said through her translator. Do nodded. Exactly. What can we do to help? Jia asked. You already have, Do said with a smile, by finding Summon and protecting her. But now we need your other skills. He showed Jia a broken machine. This is a shield generator. It hides our energy from city sensors, but it doesn't work well. You're good with technology. Can you fix it? Jia looked at the machine. It was complex, but not too different from the data systems she worked with. I can try. For the next few days, Jia worked on the shield generator while Summon trained with Yumi and the other human. Summon learned to focus her powers better. She could now lift heavy objects and hold them in the air for a long time. One day, Yumi brought Summon a small plant that was dying. Can you feel it? She asked. Can you feel its life? Summon closed her eyes and placed her hands near the plant. Slowly, the plant began to straighten. Its brown leaves turned green again. You healed it, Jia said in wonder. Summon looked at her own legs with hope in her eyes. Maybe someday. Do watched them with a serious face. She's stronger than we thought. The council would do anything to catch her now. They won't find us, Jia said firmly. And if they do, we'll be ready. 1 month passed. Jia fixed the shield generator and made it even better. She also built small devices that could hide a person from sensors. Salman practiced her powers every day with Yumi. She could now move many objects at once and even create a shield of energy around herself. Do called everyone together one evening. "We have a plan," he said. "We will attack the main processing center where they change human babies." He showed them pictures of a large building in the city. "If we can stop the processing, many humans will keep their natural powers." "It's dangerous," warned Yumi. "The center has many guards." "Yes," Do agreed. "But we have something they don't expect." He looked at Suman. "We have her." Jia felt afraid. "You want to use Soman in the raid? She's just a child." "I want to help," Soman signed. Her face was serious. "I've seen what they do to humans. I want to stop it." "She won't be in danger," Do promised. "She'll stay back with you, using her powers from a safe distance." After much talk, Jia agreed. For 2 more weeks, they planned the raid. Jia built special tools to open locked doors. Soman practiced moving things she couldn't see, guided only by Yumi's thoughts. The night of the raid came. They traveled to the city in a hidden vehicle. The processing center stood tall against the night sky, its walls glowing with blue light. "Remember the plan," Do told everyone. "Get in, stop the machines, get out. Don't try to fight the guards." Jia and Soman waited in the vehicle while the others went ahead. Through a small screen, they watched their friends enter the building. Jia's heart beat fast with worry. "Can you feel them?" she asked Soman. Soman nodded. "Yumi is sending me pictures from her mind. I can see where they are." Suddenly, alarms sounded from the building. Red lights flashed along the walls. "Something's wrong," Jia said. "They've been caught." On the screen, they saw guards chasing their friends. Do and the others ran for safety, but guards blocked their path. "I have to help them," Soman signed quickly. Before Jia could stop her, Soman closed her eyes and focused her mind. Inside the building, doors suddenly slammed shut, trapping the guards away from Do and the others. Computer screens exploded. Lights went out. "You're doing it," Jia said with amazement. But it wasn't enough. More guards came from another part of the building. They had weapons ready to fire. "I need to do more," Soman signed. Her face showed pain as she pushed her powers harder than ever before. The ground began to shake. The walls of the processing center cracked. Guards fell down, unable to stand. "Be careful," Jia warned. "Don't hurt yourself." Too late. Blood began to drip from Soman's nose. Her body shook with effort. But she didn't stop. Inside the building, Do and the others reached the main processing room. They quickly placed bombs on the huge machines that changed human babies. "Done," Do shouted into his communicator. "We're coming out." As they ran for the exit, a guard appeared with a large weapon. He fired at them. The blue alien fell. Yumi was hit in the arm. The guard aimed at Do. "No," Jia cried. Soman's eyes flew open. She made a pushing motion with her hands. Inside the building, the guard flew backward, hitting the wall hard. Then everything went wrong. A second guard, hidden until now, fired at Do. The blast hit him in the chest. He fell to the ground. "Do!" Jia screamed. Without thinking, she ran from the vehicle toward the building. She reached Do just as Yumi dragged him outside. Blood covered his chest. His eyes were closed. "He's dying," Yumi said, her voice breaking. Jia felt a wave of grief. This was her fault. She should never have agreed to the plan. Suddenly, Soman was beside them. She had used her powers to move her own body from the vehicle. Her face was pale, her nose still bleeding, but her eyes held fierce determination. "Move back," she signed. "Let me try." Soman placed her small hands on Do's chest. Her face showed great focus. Everyone stepped back, watching with hope and fear. "She's never healed something this bad," Jia whispered to Yumi. "And she's already weak from using her powers. A soft blue light began to glow around Soman's hands. It spread over Do's body, covering his wound. Soman's body shook with effort. More blood came from her nose, and now from her ears too. "Stop," Gia said, reaching for her. "You'll hurt yourself." But Soman didn't stop. The blue light grew brighter. Do's chest wound slowly closed. Color returned to his face. He took a deep breath and opened his eyes. "It worked," Yumi said with amazement. Soman smiled weakly. Then her eyes rolled back, and she fell to the ground. "Soman," Ja rushed to her side. The human child lay still, barely breathing. Do sat up, touching his healed chest in wonder. "She saved me, but it cost her too much energy." They carried Soman and the injured blue alien to their vehicle. Behind them, the processing center began to collapse from the damage Soman had caused. Alarms sounded throughout the city. "We must leave quickly," Yumi said. "More guards will come." They drove deep into the forest, back to their hidden base. There, they put Soman in a soft bed. She didn't wake up. Her body was cool, her breathing shallow. "Will she be okay?" Jia asked Do. She held Soman's small hand tightly. "I don't know," he admitted. "She used more power than any human I've ever seen." For 3 days, Soman didn't wake. Jia stayed by her side, talking to her, telling her stories, begging her to come back. On the 4th day, as Jia slept in a chair beside Soman's bed, she felt something strange. A warmth spreading through her hand where it touched Soman's. She opened her eyes. Soman's body was glowing with soft golden light. The light moved like water, flowing from her head down to her legs. It grew brightest around her damaged spine. "Do," Ja called. "Come quickly." Do and the others ran into the room. They watched in silence as the golden light pulsed around Soman. Suddenly, Soman's eyes flew open. She took a deep breath. The golden light faded away. "Soman," Ja leaned close. "Can you hear me?" Soman smiled. She lifted her hand to sign, but then stopped. A look of surprise crossed her face. Slowly, she moved her foot, then her leg. "My legs," she signed with shaking hands. "I can feel them." Tears ran down Ja's face. "You healed yourself." Soman pushed herself up to sit. Then, with care, she swung her legs over the edge of the bed. Jia and Do helped her stand. For the first time since Jia had found her, Soman stood on her own legs. "The power was always inside you," Do said. "Healing others showed you how to heal yourself." 6 months passed. The raid on the processing center changed everything. News spread across the planet about humans with special powers. Many Lurani joined the resistance, including some who worked in the government. Jia, Do, and Soman became leaders of a new movement. They helped free humans from pet shops and breeding centers. Soman taught other humans to find their hidden powers. The Galactic Council sent soldiers to stop them, but they were too late. Too many humans had awakened their powers. Too many Lurani had learned the truth. One bright morning, Jia and Soman stood on a hill overlooking a new settlement. Below them, humans and marked Lurani lived together in peace. Children played in the fields. No one was a pet. No one was an outcast. "We did it," Jia said. "We changed the world." Soman, now able to speak the Lurani language, smiled at her. "We found each other. That's what changed everything." Jia looked at her purple marks, once a source of shame. Now they were a symbol of the new world they were building. A world where being different was a strength, not a weakness. "What will we do next?" Jia asked. Soman looked up at the stars. "There are more humans out there, more people who need our help." Jia took Soman's hand. "Then we'll find them. Together."